How can creativity help you heal? This is a video on the healing power of poetry and the arts for Black women healing from trauma. My name is Marissa Price. I am a Black woman social worker, healer, freelance educator. And this channel is a safe space for Black women to heal, to process trauma, to share resources with each other, to build community. So if that sounds good to you, please subscribe to my channel. Please like this video and please comment below if anything resonates with you tonight. I have a wonderful guest with me today, Leslyn Moore. I'll pass it over to her to introduce herself and tell us about her YouTube channel.
Hi everyone, my name is Leslyn. I am quite simply, I'm a poet, I'm an educator, and I am your literary architect. That's about as much as there is to it.
I love that. I want to ask about your name, the name of your channel. Where did that come to be? Like, what was the inspiration behind that?
I was having a conversation with someone on Facebook,
Okay.
and she mentioned something about uh, the way architecture comes about. She is a historian, and she was talking about the way architecture comes about and how everything is put together to make the buildings look the way they do, not just on the outside.
Mhm.
And it just caught my attention. And I started to realize that it is the same thing with art in the writing format. Architecture is a beautiful art in and of itself, but writing is not very different. Everything is in building blocks. And so when I thought about when I first started writing, when I thought about when writing started to make a difference in my life, when I started to think about writing as a true art form, that's when I started to realize how it built out my frame of mind, the way I saw the
Mhm.
world, the way I saw myself. And that's where that came from.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And yes, writing for me has been something I have returned to over the past 2.5 years. I think just healing from a lot of different things, but a really toxic job experience, as I shared about on my channel. And in the process of that, writing a book, Cocoon, which was a series of affirmations to myself, right? Spiritual downloads that I received. And so just to hear you share that about writing, like the power of that, yes. And hey, Yvonne says, yes, you're literally architect. Love that. That's amazing.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
amazing. Yeah, I do want to ask just about your background as it relates to writing poetry, how long you've been writing, and yeah, has this always been a passion area of yours?
Writing has always been a passion. I started writing in this format when I was in school. Like I went to school earlier than most of the people around me. So I started like actual school around 3. And so I've been writing for a long time, but I had a teacher. Her name was Christine Clarkson. I will never forget her. She is no longer with us,
Yeah.
but she was a poet and she also did performing arts. And one day she said to me that if I continue to write, I will find my soul.
Ooh.
That stuck with me. And I had to have been about 9 when she said that to me. And that stuck with me. And then so many things have happened over the years. Like I started to grow up. I started to take a lot of standardized testing. I started to do all the things. And then I came to the US and I joined the military, and life just took its own turn. And I got lost in all of that. And it's not
Mhm.
until maybe about, I would say about 10 years ago, not even, maybe about 6 years ago, I really sat down one day and I was going through the things that I've kept over the years. And I found the letter she wrote me. Changed my life. Changed my life.
Wow.
And I started writing again. I went over
Mhm.
some of the old poetry that I've had from when I was a child. And I started to realize that it's not so much that I was lost in what life was doing, it's
Mhm.
more that I was just blindsided by what life was doing. and I couldn't see the forest for the trees. And then I started writing again. And as I wrote, I started to find myself again. I found myself, I found my world. And now, I found community, and I found it has changed the way the world forms itself around me. And it has allowed me to realize I don't need to form myself around the world. Like, I don't need to be doing that. I do not need to show up how someone else think I should anymore. I'm
Wow.
done. And that has
Ooh,
really transformed the way I show up for the world and the way I show up for myself. It has transformed everything for me. So there it is.
wow. Wow, that's so powerful. I don't need to form myself around the world. That's like, oh my gosh. That's powerful, Leslyn. Thank you for sharing that with us. Yes. Just taking a second there. And yeah, like you shared about like the power of teachers. I can recall like teachers throughout my life, like you said, like still remembering their name, everything that they said to me, and just the power of someone reflecting back to you, right? The power that already exists within you, and you just have to tap
Mhm.
in. Um,
Yeah,
mm,
very
that's
true.
powerful.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we've all had those teachers that you just know that person had no business being in education. We've
Yeah.
all had those, right?
Yeah.
But over the years, I've had about three, maybe four excellent ones that that their sole purpose in life was to
Yes.
transform the lives of others. Like they were just impeccable people and left a legacy afterwards because the lives they transformed, well, like mine, and now it's
Mm-hmm.
great. So they're excellent people. And some people are made for this, and some people not so much.
Mm-hmm.
Some people not so
Mm-hmm.
much. And the truth is, writing is one of those ways, and not just writing. Writing is my art, right? But
Mm-hmm.
creativity is a way to show you not just who you are, but who the world is. When you have dabbled in any way in creativity, whether you are cooking, whether you are playing an instrument, whether you're whatever it is that you're doing, when you have found the art that moves your soul and
Mm-hmm.
shifts the needle in the direction that matters,
Mm-hmm.
that is when you start to understand not just the world, but the people in it. That's when you start to see people for who they are. Because as you focus in, as you do the thing that quickens your spirit,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you start to get understanding. And that's when it makes an impact. That's when you can make an impact on the world and on the people in it. Because now you
Mm-hmm.
understand it differently, and often you understand it better.
Wow. That's so powerful. Oh my gosh. We're like 9 minutes in. Wow.
Are you
Deeper
frozen?
understanding of the world. Yeah. Cause I'm just thinking like I should be back.
You
Can you
are.
hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. But yeah, there are certain books along like my life path that I still have with me that still like remind me of what the world is like, even when I lose touch, right? For years, it's like going back to the art form. I'm reminded, okay, now I have a better understanding once again. And because I've aged along this time, I'm able to kind of like put the puzzle pieces together with life experience and
Hmm.
what the art has always been trying to show me this whole time.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You will
That,
come to notice that over time, you'll start to see that some avenues of creativity just meld better with you than others. So I love to cook. I trained as a chef. I went to Le Cordon
mm,
Bleu in Paris. Still don't do it as well.
wow.
Yeah, I still don't do it as well. Even like 2 days ago, my mom was cooking, and I sat down to eat, and she made one of the dishes we make at home. And I was thinking about it. The food was so good. And I was thinking about the fact that no matter how much training I get, I'll never be able to make this dish the way my mother does. It'll never happen. I've never seen my mother follow a recipe ever.
Hmm.
But somehow it is in her. It quickens her spirit, it livens her soul to just be in the kitchen. And she can take literally anything out of the refrigerator and make magic with it. No training can do that. That is creativity. That is art. And that's
Hmm.
something we overlook oftentimes when we think about what will not just make us feel better, but make us be better. That's how we heal, when we find the art that quickens us. And someone else's art is never going to do it for me.
Wow. Wow. Can you speak about that? Like the different modes of creativity, like inspiration kind of takes different forms. I
Hmm.
found like sometimes it shows up like I need to write something and I'll get inspiration from that or make a video or
Hmm.
like all these various means of creativity. And just anything you want to share about that, like leaving room for how the inspiration shows up.
Yeah, yeah, of course. So, you know, I see that I see that we have Alicia Renice in the chat. And that question immediately makes me think of her.
Hmm.
When Alicia does a video, more often than not, she's sitting somewhere outside. She's walking in the forest. She's by a river. She is next to a park or something, because being outside livens her, right? And
Hmm.
she's in connection with the earth, with the universe. That will never do it for me. Like, I can be outside, but
Hmm.
outside won't do it for me. I have to have literally a pen or pencil in my hand, and I have to be scribbling something. And in the process of scribbling, sometimes just doodling like this, and it will come. It will come, and I'll be
Hmm.
able to write. That won't happen for everyone. For some people, they need to be literally in the market looking at how the vegetables and the fruits are aligned with each other in the market, how the colors come together for them to be able to put the flavors together. Like, different things inspire us, and it does it so easily, we forget to listen to it. And therein, I
Mm.
think, is the big issue. Healing comes to us, but we are searching for it in a place where we don't belong. And I think that's an issue. I might find healing in the written word, whereas someone else will find healing in the spoken word, right? And so that's something we have to be willing to open our hearts, to open our minds to where our healing is coming from. Everyone in the community can speak the exact same words. It will only
Mm.
land one time, because only one person will have the right tone, the right note. That's
Mhm.
the same thing with healing and creativity. The right moment will come and it will land. What sparks that in me will not spark it in you. And healing must come individually. But creativity, whatever form it comes in, will bring it every single time.
Thank you for that. Thank you. I want to ask about trusting. Like you said, trusting that it will come. A lot of us, like, that trust has been broken along the
Mhm.
way, right? Even with ourselves, that will never be inspired, that the downloads will never happen again. And so we're in like full human mode instead of being connected
Yes.
to a higher power, creativity, inspiration. How do you begin to relearn to trust that it will come?
You know, when you've been in a relationship, a romantic type of relationship, and that person breaks your heart,
Hmm.
it feels like they've broken your soul, doesn't it?
Hmm. Hmm.
They haven't. And that's the same thing here. It is so difficult for us to trust the world now as Black women because we have generations of unadulterated mistrust because they came on fast and furious and they just bulldozed their way through us, generation after generation after generation. It is
Yes.
now almost ingrained in our DNA that we don't trust the world. Well, if we allow them, and for lack of a better way to put it, it really is a situation where we allow them to now, because now we know, now we recognize that it is by design. They are making a literal effort to break us. So do we allow them to break us any further, right? And that's
Mm.
how trust is, I don't want to say reborn because it's not so much, I do not believe it dies, but that's how we piece it back together.
Hmm.
First, we have to learn to trust ourselves. We have to learn to trust that I am always in here. I am always the person that will feel everything that I allow to happen to me. Do I trust myself to strengthen the barriers that prevent myself from being broken any further? When we learn to trust ourselves, then we can project trust from within and let trust build that barrier for us. Otherwise, we're depending on someone else to build a barrier, and we can't afford
Mm.
it. Because who cares? Who cares? We
Hmm.
care. I care about me, you care about you,
Right.
and we care that our hearts feel hollow. So, what do we do to fill that spot? No one else is going to come fill it for us. And that is a very, very difficult thing to wrap our heads around when we already don't trust the world. Creativity is an interesting and sometimes difficult path to take to healing, right?
Hmm.
If you want to cook, then you have to actually get up and be in the kitchen. You cannot be afraid of getting burnt if all you ever want to do is cook. You have to brave the fire, right? So if you want to make your mark on the world, if you want to leave a legacy behind,
Hmm.
you have to project trust from within. You have to rebuild yourself and allow yourself to be that thing that stops them in their tracks. You can't do it any other way. It has to come from within.
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you for that. And yes, the wisdom. Thank you.
I'm looking at the chat and I don't know if I
Seriously.
should be embarrassed or a little bit shy.
Yes. So many, ooh, bars of
Thank
wisdom
you
that you just
guys.
dropped. Yes. I want to ask
Hmm.
about the healing power of creativity in your life. I know you shared the letter that your teacher wrote to you, and you just stumbling across that and then it changing your life once again.
Yes,
How has creativity been like this consistent healing force over time in your life? Anything you want to share around that?
sure. Um, so Anyone who knows me knows that a good book does it for me every time. A good book and good food, like I love it. As long as I don't have to cook the food, I'm good, right? But here's the thing. I started to realize that I was so angry. Like,
Mhm,
maybe not angry. Listen, I was pissed off,
mhm,
right? I held so much anger. And then one day, when I started to go back into writing, I decided I was going to write a character that could spew all the fire in the world. But I was not brave enough to have that character be human and say all those things. So I wrote a dragon and all the fire in the world. And just by doing that, and this was many moons ago, I was a lot younger. Over time, that dragon took shape, right?
mhm,
And she has become human. Now she has a different way of expressing the fire. Now she's no longer blazing in anger. She's not trying to raise the world to the ground, but she is formulating ways in which she can create change in the world,
mhm,
right? And over time, I've come to realize that it is not ever going to be, it is not ever going to be a quick thing. I was angry, I was sad, I was grieving, and I had no idea what to do with all of that. 2 years ago, I was sitting um, in the living room downstairs having a conversation with my family. And we were talking about, the things that has helped us to grow, to develop over the past year. And I had to realize and I had to vocalize the fact that no one can acknowledge that grief, that anger, that loneliness better than I could, right?
mhm,
And it really has helped me to grow past to that place because now when you speak to me, I am more calm, I am more put together. But sister, friend, child of God, I was a mess. I was a mess. And it took time for me to write my way through that. And so I have to I have to acknowledge the fact that writing for me brings clarity. And I think
mhm,
that's the thing that creativity does above all else. Whether you are playing an instrument, whether you are putting together a new um, workout program, whatever it is that you're doing, if you are building it, it takes
mhm,
two things. It takes hands-on mission and it takes evocative thought. And no one can do that from outside. You have to do it from within. You have to sit down, you have to plan it out, you have to work it out, you have to see which steps would be best next. How you're going to make through every step so that your program that you're building work, so that the dish that you cook in, the flavors meld well together, so that the poem that you're writing, the stanzas flow well. You have to do that. That's how creativity works. The process of working your way through that helps you unpack the grief, the anger, the loneliness, the craziness, the crazy people at work. It helps you unpack all of that information in a way that nothing else can. It's not something you can force. It's not something that you can ever stop and say, oh, it just happened. Healing doesn't just happen. And we've spoken about recently on your channel here, we've spoken about that book, the Body Holds the Scores.
Yeah. Uh huh.
Yeah, your
Hmm.
body knows, your mind knows. And it's very, very important that we recognize it doesn't just happen. You have to make a conscious effort, work your way through it. That's what creativity is. Otherwise, you're kind of lost. You're kind of lost. Like I was
Hmm.
lost, far
Wow.
lost. It's a hard
Thank you
road
so
to walk,
much.
but it is so
Yeah.
worth it. So worth it. Find your own creative outlet. We all have one. We
Hmm.
all have one, right? Every single time I listen to one of Alicia's songs, and I go back on her channel and listen to them. Every time I listen to one of her songs, I think about the fact, and her songs are wrong. They're like, hey, it's morning, open your eyes. That's how you wake up. The first thing you do when you wake up is you open your eyes. Like all of the things that she's thinking and feeling right then went into
Hmm.
that song, right?
Hmm.
And that's how healing happens. It is the same thing with every single avenue of creativity. Find the one that belongs to you. That might be different. That might be difficult. Find your own avenue and let's work through it.
Find your own avenue. Yes, that's so true. And healing is very much an active thing. Like you said, it's not a passive thing where one day you just wake up healed. You have to work through the very difficult emotions,
Yeah.
things that you've experienced, right? To get to the deeper level of understanding. What is the meaning in all this?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. I do want to ask about, I see a comment from Donna. I love that I was so pissed off. Yes, I wrote a character and you chose a dragon to express it. Can you speak about that? Like choosing a dragon to express that anger that you were feeling.
you know, in on the other side of the pond, we have one country, I think it's England. It is their animal on their coat of arms. They are represented by an animal that technically doesn't exist, right? One of them, I think it's Ireland or Scotland, is represented by a unicorn or something like that. All of these things came from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that. And if you've ever heard me speak about dragons, I tell people all the time, I love dragons, and one day I'm going to find one. I am going to find one, right? People think I'm nuts, which I might be. I'm okay with that. I own it.
Mm-hmm.
But I also recognize the inherent strength that lies within a dragon. Dragons are some of we see them as some of the larger creatures on the planet. They are one of the strongest. Their coats are described to be very strong. Their scales are very strong, right? And but they are thinking creatures. So when you have a being that is so large, so strong physically, and can think and reason, I'm sorry. I don't know about anybody else. That sounds like a black woman to me. That's my
Yes.
that's
Mm-hmm.
my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about the fact that, and I have thought about it over the last, y- I want to say about 20 years or so, I've been hearing a lot about the angry black woman. And that's how they see us. Every time you stand up for yourself, you're angry. No, I'm not angry at what's happening right now. I'm angry that you think it takes anger to deal with this. Like that's not necessary. And the only way I could have channeled all of that vitriol that I was thinking and feeling at the time was through flames. And to me, it was a simple idea. It's not until years later that I had to stop and work my way through that decision and realize that it is because of the way that they are expressed, the way we see them, the way we understand dragons. That's the reason I chose one, because it's big and strong and it has the ability to think and to take action. And therein lies the thing: the ability to think and take action is what matters.
Wow.
That's why I chose
Yeah.
the dragon.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for that. I'm gonna have to sit with that. That's amazing. Yes. Yes. Um, Love Love Single Mom says because we need an outlet. Yeah, it resides inside until unless we release it. Yes, absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And I see a few questions from Yvonne. Has she ever experienced major creative block? And if so, how did she find her way back to source muse? Anything you want to share around that, around creative blocks?
Actually, that's a very good question. For writers, here's what I would say about having blocks. Okay. If you are writing, it doesn't matter what you're writing. If it stops, change what you're doing. If you're writing a song, let's say, for example, you're writing a song about a dragon flying in the sky. I don't know. If all of a sudden you cannot find the words to write, do this instead. Take the book that you're writing it in or the page that you're typing it on, set that aside, minimize it, open a new page, and here's what you do: write something that's more akin to a storm. Write something that is the direct opposite of what you're currently writing. Here's what's going to happen: the moment you change the thought, a new set of thoughts flow. If you're writing about the sun and you can't figure out the next word to describe it, write about a storm. Because whatever is the opposite of what's happening in the sun is what's happening in the storm. You may find that you want to write a song about the storm instead, and you can express that because you're stuck on this. That's how it works for me. So that's what I recommend. Change the thought. It's not just writing the opposite. It's really changing the train of thought that you're having. If you are getting ready to make a dish, you open the refrigerator and you realize, oh, I don't have the mozzarella. Under normal circumstances, you may consider substituting the cheese with something else, right? But mozzarella is such a gentle flavor, and it has such um, distinctive characteristics that if you use a different cheese, it changes your dish. Like often, it spoils the flavor of your dish. So if the dish calls for mozzarella, you might consider making a different dish, right?
Mm-hmm.
That makes a difference. If you just change the frame of mind that you're in at that moment, it helps to unlock writer's block because you're no longer blocked. Now you have opened a new pathway. And that's what makes the difference when you're doing stuff like that.
Wow. Yes.
Now, see,
Ooh.
Marissa is a clinical person. I don't have that type of expertise, right?
No. No. The expertise that you have just given us
But I
in
have to
35
say,
minutes. Mm-hmm.
I have to say, it does make a difference. You want to remember that when you are in the process of doing something, let's say you're making, let's say you're knitting a blanket, right? And you meant to make a cross stitch, but you got distracted by someone walking through the door, and you made a straight stitch instead. Does that change the fact that you're making a blanket? No, but it might change the design on the blanket. And just that change, it changes the way you appreciate the blanket itself. So it doesn't change the fact that your song has been written. It doesn't change how wonderful the new song is. It just changed the subject you were writing about. I can tell you that when that happens, your brain starts to make different connections and the synapses start firing differently. And so you
Yeah.
create new pathways, new neural pathways. And if you
Yes.
follow that trend, it helps you to think differently. In the term thinking outside of the box comes from just that, creating new synapses and neural pathways with something like creativity is novel. And I know for our community, often because we are seen as, treated as, understood as chattel,
Yes.
it's not something that is encouraged in our
Ooh.
community. And so we don't heal in the same way. You'll notice that in the schools where they have a lot of money, where they have the the median income is higher, the children are of different skin tones than we are, you'll notice that they have all these creative outlets, and
Mm-hmm.
they do exceptionally well because they have creative outlets.
Yes.
We need to find ours. And that's what's going to make a difference. We are going to not only heal ourselves as individuals, but what happens is that healed people heal people. The
Mm-hmm.
way we deal with our children will be different. The way we speak to our parents will be different. The way we see the world will be different because everything that we touch, we will heal because we took the time to recognize the need for creative healing. And that's a really, really important thing that's missing in our community. We want to change that.
Mm-hmm.
We want to change that.
Mm-hmm. I want to read a comment from Mike Musbay. Hello, thank you for joining. Thank you both for this listen. I am truly struck by the timeliness of this message. It is very enlightening to apply it to my own life. I'm grateful for the space you've created here. Absolutely. And thank you for being here. Thank you for this
Thank you
comment.
for being here.
Hmm. I want to ask about something you brought up, being socialized as chattel, chattel slavery, right? And how that impacts how we view creativity. One of my questions is many people believe they're not creative,
Mm,
right? When you have been socialized, as you said, as chattel is not even a human being with a brain, with a human brain to be able to create works
yeah.
of art, even though we've seen throughout history, it has been our art that has inspired so many people. How can we begin to unlearn these things to view ourselves as human, even if other people are dehumanizing us externally?
Hmm. That's an interesting question. I thought about I thought about the concept of unlearning these things. And I know that intellectually I understand that for some people it is going to be extremely important that they do. For people who are artists in any way, while we all are creative, we're not all artists, right? But here's the thing, for people who are artists, I do not think it's a good idea to set about the business of unlearning these things. These things, for lack of a better way to put it, they guide us. They help us to understand better how we want to not show up, how we want to not place ourselves in the world. It also helps us to navigate the world of artistry. I don't know how not to speak in terms of creative analogy. So let's find a good one for you.
We love it. Mm-hmm.
Let's say, let's go back to the time of slavery, just for a moment in our minds. Not in reality, God please, only in our minds. Whew. Think about what came out of that, right? While a lot of those people would stand and say to you, I don't have the time to be creative. I don't have the energy to be creative because they were working hard. Let's not pretend otherwise. They don't know what it is to be creative. But, honey, some of the greatest music, some of the most creative dishes, some of the Madam CJ Parker, like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, the things that came out of there, when we think about what it means for an individual to find their avenue of creativity, it can be anything. Literally, it can be anything. I spoke to a young lady recently. I was doing a skills assessment for her, and one of the things she said to me was, she's so exhausted with all of the corporate things, the being in the office, the having to deal with the rigidity of the moment by moment, having to listen to the inundated voices all the time. But she lives in New York City, and New York is one of the most interesting cities in the world. And she's lived in New York for more than 10 years. And she's navigated that quagmire that is Manhattan for 10 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
As I was going through her knowledge base, one of the things I pulled out of there is, you know, if you really want to work for yourself, there's a gap in New York. Everybody comes to New York and they think that there is a service for them. But here's what there's very little of in New York City, like in Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
Actual individual companies, like one person companies that do food tours. This girl has been living in New York City for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
She knows every hole in the wall. She knows every tiny bar. She knows, like, all of these little things that we don't think about. You know the best places to eat in New York when you live in New York. And the people who come to visit New York, they want to visit all of the famous places. They're not thinking about the little hole in the walls where the best food is.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who have the larger companies that make the money doing food tours, they're not thinking about these hole in the walls. That's a gap in the market in New York City, in the heart of Manhattan. Those little things. We don't see ourselves as creative, but we have embedded in our spirits, embedded in our souls, in our DNA, the ability to turn those little things into monstrous things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where creativity is born. Yes, they see us as chattel.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they treat us as chattel. How do we treat us? How do we see us? That's the question I want to answer. And every day I struggle with how I see myself. And I know sometimes when I speak, it can come across as if, oh, well, I know myself. Girl, I'm 50. I don't know anything. Like, let's be clear. I'm learning every day. And every day I learn something new about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And every day I understand myself a little bit differently, even if it's not better. And every day I get a little bit more clarity as I walk this path of healing every day.
Yes.
And every day I understand creativity a little bit differently. Every day.
Wow.
It's a journey and
It
we
is a
walk
journey.
it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the most important thing that has sunk in actually within the last 48 hours was having a conversation with Rashadat. And one of the things that really sunk in for me is no matter how we do it, fast or slow, ain't none of us have to do it alone, honey. This DIY thing, that's not working. We cannot afford to walk this road of healing in any format alone. That's why we have a community. We're here to support each other. We're here to help each other heal, to hold your hand and walk you through it so that you heal, even if you heal at a different pace, but you can heal. And creativity is here to help you do so. And you are. You are. Whatever that is, you are. And we see it. We hear it in the chats of all of these videos all the time. We
Yes.
listen to these
Yes.
brilliant, amazing minds, these women who tell us every single day how they're making a difference in the lives of the people around them, how they are building these buildings that are going to stand forever. Like we hear the creativity in the things that they say, but they don't recognize it.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
I promise it's there.
Yeah. I want to read a comment from Marissa. Hey, enough by M&T. So true. The quilts, the dressmaking, the music, the food. We have always created in good and bad times. That.
Mic
Mm-hmm.
drop, Marissa.
Mm-hmm.
Mic drop.
Yes. Yes. Wow.
Very, very true.
That is so true. I want to talk about, as we were talking about backstage, right? The gap in the skills assessment that you provide and how like beneficial that is. Like you said, a lot of us can't recognize, right? Because of
Yeah.
what we have experienced in various environments, people telling us things about ourselves that we've internalized, how incredibly amazing we are, skilled.
Yes.
And so, like, what is the importance of bridging that gap between our skill sets and then recognizing that we're skilled?
Yeah. So I keep calling it a gap,
Mm-hmm.
but it suddenly dawns on me like right now it dawns on me that's not a gap. That's a
Ah,
chasm.
ah.
Because here's what happens. In fact, let me tell you my experience. Maybe that will help.
Mhm.
So I was working for this amazing company. I kid you not, amazing company. Love it, still love it, will go back to work for them. That's how good they are, right?
Mhm.
I left and I started to look for a new position after I started to feel better because I left for medical reasons.
Mhm.
I am looking for a position. I'm 50 years old. I have 30 years of experience under my belt. And still, these folks are telling me things like, well, you don't have enough experience in this area. We're a startup and we are looking for someone with 15 years experience in this area. Bruh, if you're a startup, you cannot afford someone with 15 years of experience in that area. Like, let's be
Mhm.
clear, right? But going from, I can't do this anymore, to I want to do it for myself because I've done it for them for so long. I know I can do it for myself. It doesn't look like a big gap. Oh, but honey, it is.
It is.
It is. And when we look at ourselves, we don't see everything that they see. This is why they try to tell you nonsense like, oh, well, you're going to get a $1 raise after you worked here 20 years. And you're too valuable in this position for us to move you up the ladder. Let's move someone we don't really know if we can trust them up the ladder. Like, and when we sit down and look at ourselves, what they see, we don't see, right?
Mhm.
And the things that we do see, often we don't see them as transferable skills. Like the young lady in Manhattan. Like, she just started her company and she's doing food tours in Manhattan. That girl sent me an email. She is booked out until
What?
November of 2025.
Wow.
Okay? I was like, honey, so proud of you because she never would have considered that as a transferable skill to freelancing. She
Hmm.
never would have considered it. Because when we think of freelancing, we think of web designing, we think of uh,
Yeah.
virtual assistants.
Hmm.
We think of the things that have, um, we think of the things that they thought were good transferable skills for them to use.
Yes.
That's what we do. So we use their labels on our clothing. Stop that. Stop that. That's what's making the difference.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see ourselves clearly enough because we look at ourselves through someone else's lenses. If you cannot see it, then you need help. But I promise you, from the outside looking in, we can find it. I will never be able to do a proper skills assessment on myself. I would never be able to do it. However, by the time it took me 2 weeks to do mine, it took me 2 weeks to do just my own, but it took me 2 hours to do hers.
Wow.
That's the difference. If you would like to know, for anyone who's in the chat and anyone who see this video in the future, hi from the future, if you would like to know whether or not you are ready or you have what it takes or you even have something to offer, grab a copy of this skills assessment guide. It will help guide you. Now, granted, it could be just a jumping off point for you. I'll make all the resources available to you later. We are here to help. But I promise you, you have more to offer the world because you don't see yourself as creative. But we know it.
We know it.
We
Mm-hmm.
know it.
Mm-hmm. And Marissa says, yes, booked and busy. Leslyn is changing lives. You are.
I don't know about all of that. She certainly has made quite an impact. And I am so proud of her. So proud of her. She's doing all the things.
Mm. And can I just reflect that back to you? Like you've changed lives just on this live stream with what
Oh,
you've
well, I
shared.
don't know about that.
Y'all, give me some backup. Yes, you changed my life. I'm not the same. I'm telling you, I'm not the same as I was when we started.
I am honored.
Yes. Yes.
I am honored.
Truly. Yes, Kiana says, what I'm hearing is so affirming. It's literally how I've slowly awakened to what I can do and what people recognize me for. Yes.
Yes. Yes. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
think about it. You know, like when you're sitting in the office, being annoyed that you have to be there and figure out things to do to keep you look busy because you've done everything and you don't want to do everybody else's work. You know those
Mm-hmm.
moments? And then someone comes to you and they go, hey, can you help me do dot, dot, dot? That thing, that's something you can offer the world.
It's true.
Like, it is there. I promise you, it is there. We are inherently creative. That's the thing about Black women.
Mm-hmm.
We are inherently creative. Everything within us. screams birth. We come from source.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where all of this was birthed out of. It is in our DNA to be so. So when we allow the voices to take that away from us, to put blinders on us and to block out the sun, when we allow other voices to take away from us that inherent nature, that is an issue. That is an issue.
Yes. Yes. And I'll just speak for myself. That's why I found like so much healing and validation, especially in communities on YouTube that Black women creators have created, right?
Yes,
Um, there's a level of healing that I have never been able to experience before now, just in these spaces, because no one really understood, right? And now we're
that's
able to
right.
reflect back to each other. No, you're skilled, you're valuable, all these things that we're taught that we're not over such a long period of time. It has been incredibly affirming to be in these communities.
It's true.
Yeah.
I've never I've never considered, like, I am just old enough to where I have been watching YouTube from its inception. Like YouTube is only like 26, 27 years
Yeah.
old. Did
Uh-huh.
you realize it?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
has the time gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. It was not until I found Stephanie Perry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, to I will never be able to pay her back for the
Yeah.
value that she brought to the community and to me as an individual. Because the the jolt that it brought to my system, to be able to recognize that I am not the only one thinking it. I am not the only one feeling it. I am not the only one dealing with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then she methodically, creatively, systematically brought this community together. Then we brought in Rashida. That, like,
Mm-hmm.
out of nowhere, all of these wonderful voices came together. Like, the Exodus Summit community is the bomb.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if any of you are going to be in her next live, but the next person who sees Stephanie Perry, let her know that woman is awesomely loved. Awesomely so. Because in a very short period of time, all of these voices came out, and it shook the community in a way that very few things have. Do you
Mm-hmm.
remember in the early 1990s, there was a very famous brand called Fubu
Mm-hmm.
out of New
Yeah.
York? This young man, now he's a big name, but then he had what? Five shirts created? And he was going from place to place, and all these dudes that we were watching on these music videos, they were wearing the same shirts because he wanted to bring eyes to the brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how you're creative. Like,
Mm-hmm.
all it took was one person standing up and say, "It can be done. I'll figure out a way to get it done."
Yeah.
That was it. I can never say how grateful I am to the community for the changes that they have wrought. But here's the
Mm-hmm.
thing. As much as now we have more voices and the internet is open to us, we have to remember Stephanie Perry's creativity is changing Stephanie Perry's life. It's bringing Stephanie Perry healing,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have to remember the baseline. The baseline is, while I have been inspired by Stephanie and Rashida and Rashadat and Marissa and Level Up Single Mom and all of the wonderful women that are here for us,
Hmm.
I must now reach within and pull that thing that will quicken my spirit, pull it out and offer it
Hmm.
up. And it must come as an offering. You have to open your hands. It's like when you're praying, you know, you offer your prayers up to
Hmm.
whoever you pray to. You
Hmm.
have to pull it out and you have to offer it to the world. Because here's the thing, you can't keep it to yourself if you want to heal.
Wow.
If
Hmm.
it stays boxed up,
Yeah.
it doesn't transform. Every word written on that page will grow into a poem, into a song, into a course, into a story. Every word, side by side, one at a time, will grow into something else. It will transform into something else, and then it will transform your life. It will transform the way you see yourself, the way you see the world. It will help you to grow. It will help you to heal.
Hmm.
Just like every ingredient must come together, meld together for the taste, for the consistency of that dish to be just right. You have to offer it to the world and allow it to bloom. That's it.
Allow it to bloom. Wow. Speak. That's so true. And I guess I just have a question around like the fear of being seen that a lot of us experience. Any anything that you like to share around that to be able to release your creative gifts into the world so that they can bloom?
Have you noticed that there are no actual videos on my YouTube channel?
I have.
Yeah. I was so excited to be here with you today because I'm not doing it alone.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been afraid, and I don't know if afraid is the right word, but I think it's the most appropriate word. I've always been afraid to step in front of, for lack of a better way to put it, a camera. Those lenses, seeing myself through other people's lenses, or allowing other people to see me through lenses that I don't know, I don't recognize, I don't agree with. Like, that has always shaken me to the core. It leaves me a little bit cold. And so I understand that fear intimately. Like, but I also recognize this: fear and faith cannot exist in the same space. They cannot. You can either fear it or you can have faith that it will work out. You can't do both.
That just changed my life. Just changed my
Well, Jesus.
life. Wow.
And that's the thing. And I saw something, Donna, the oh yeah, it's on the screen. All these women stepped out of comfort to creativity, and that's it right there. Yes, I feel the fear, I see the barrier, and I recognize that I put that barrier there because I'm the one that's feeling the fear, right?
Hmm.
Until I, and I know this intellectually, so let's see how long it's going to take to go into effect. Have faith in me, peoples. But until I step up and say, enough, I can no longer afford to be afraid, That's not going to change. No matter how creative I am, no matter how many books I write, no
Mhm.
matter how many poems I put out, no matter how many children's books I publish, no matter what. If I'm afraid to face the world, I will always be stunted in my growth and in my healing. I
I
recognize that. So, the answer to your question is I am a cautionary tale. Do not allow fear to take over the space that faith is supposed to hold because they cannot coexist. In the same way, light and dark cannot coexist. That shadow that you throw on the wall when you stand in the light, that's darkness too. And you'll notice it cannot stay. As soon as you move, it moves, right? We have to, the fear is there, it's real. It's sometimes so real, it's tangible. And oftentimes we tell people, don't be afraid. We tell people, don't let it bother you. It's just a little bit of, you can work your way through it. Well, that is the equivalent of saying to someone, oh, you've been traumatized? Get over it. What is that? We can't do that to ourselves. We
Mhm.
shouldn't. As a result, we should not be doing that to others, and we certainly should not be doing it to each other. Recognize your fear, join hands with someone who can help you walk through it and help you to give birth to that thing that's going to help you. This DIY thing that we've been doing, it's not working for us. We cannot and should not. We cannot do business alone. We cannot learn alone. We can't do anything alone. Why are we trying to heal alone? That's a matter for concern, and we really shouldn't. I think Marissa's frozen. That's okay. I wonder if they're having interesting weather where she is. Oh, we've lost her temporarily. Okay, there you are. I think
High five.
everyone missed you.
Thank you. But yes, oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Leslyn. I do want to ask as we're winding down,
Mhm.
any simple creative practices that Black women can incorporate into their daily routines to kind of awaken some of the things that you mentioned, right? Healing, deeper discovery of self. Um, yeah, just simple daily practices. If you are starting at square one and it feels impossible to recover these gifts that you once had, right? How do you like reawaken them with practices? Anything you'd like to share?
There are a few things that stand out immediately. As a writer, um, for anyone who's interested in writing specifically, if you don't already do it, I would recommend a 5 minute journal. And I do literally mean 5 minutes. Whatever it is, whatever time it is, it doesn't really matter um, where you are in the day, what time of day it is. Take 5 minutes to just jot something down. And by jot something down, I mean jot something down about what's happening in that moment. Because sometimes we think of journaling specifically as we have to think about the entire day or the entire week, right? And we really don't. If it's the middle of the day, you're sitting at lunch, and your supervisor slash manager slash boss person said something untoward to you and they ticked you off, grab your notebook, grab your iPhone, open your notes, and tell your notes how you feel about that wench.
Ooh, that's what I did.
That's what you need to be
Mm-hmm.
doing because it will change your frame of mind. Here's what will
Mm-hmm.
happen. You will say, "Ooh, that ticked me off in the worst ways. Right now, if I could, I would." And you will think of all the ways that you can do it. And then you'll put it aside. Because remember, earlier in the conversation, we mentioned if it stays bottled up, it doesn't help. If you keep it will only hurt you. You can't afford for it to hurt you. So you let her have it in the notes, in your notebook. Please keep them private. You
Mm-hmm.
don't want
Yes.
anyone to get their hands on your journal, right? If you are a spoken word type of person, but not exactly a writer, here's what I recommend. I recommend a mirror and a private bathroom. Stand in front of the
Yes.
mirror
Ooh.
and just
Mm-hmm.
say it. Record it in your phone so that you keep it so you can listen to it later. Whatever the case may be, there might be some important pieces on there you want to keep for a longer piece that you're currently working on or whatever the case may be. But say it out loud, right? And allow yourself the catharsis that that moment of creativity brings. That is so important to us as Black women. So, so important to us because that is something we don't get. Catharsis is something, it's like an elusive dream. The moment you wake up, you
Mm-hmm.
feel like you don't remember anything. That is so important for us to have. The other thing I think that's important is using your vision boards.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, we think of vision boards as that thing that you make at the beginning of the year. You put one copy of it on your screen, one copy of it on your wall in your bedroom, and you go about the year with the idea that this is the thing that I'm going to um that thing that you're going to accomplish for the year. But as the year progresses, we change.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah.
change, our ideas change, our ideals change, our goals change. And so if you are, don't scrap it. That's in the immortal words of Rashadat, don't scrap it to nothing, right? That's never a good idea. But switch it up. Like if by March you realize, hey, I thought I wanted to do that, but I'm not really interested, pull it off, change it up. I would really prefer to work on a tiny home instead. Grab a picture of a tiny home and put on there and take that thing off, whatever that thing was. Right? So finding little things that you can move about like a puzzle piece in your life to fit that moment that you're in, those are little ways of causing creativity to search. And I know sometimes it doesn't seem important, but they are. If you look behind me, you'll notice I have a world map. That
Mm-hmm.
map has been in the family for 35 years. That
Wow.
same map.
Mm-hmm.
When I came to the United States, one of the first things I did was take a dart and throw it at the map. And I told my mom, wherever this dart land, that's where I'm going to be in the next 6 months. And do you know that dart landed on Cuba?
And
Cuba,
you were
of
in
all
Cuba.
places.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But do you also know that 6 months after that, I was stationed in Guantanamo Bay?
Mm.
Like, the only way I was going to get to Cuba was to join the Navy. At
Mm-hmm.
the time, I didn't know that. I had no idea. But a month later, I joined the Navy, and 6 months later, I was in Guantanamo Bay. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it drives us to think of ways to change our own lives. That's what creativity does. And if you find moments of creativity to do it, moments in which to change the way you're thinking at the moment, the way you're acting in that moment, just that one moment changes the trajectory of how you get there, right? So, 5 minutes of journaling, no matter the time of day, a little bit of spoken word in front of the mirror, changing your vision board up when something's changed or if something is sparked in that moment or whatever the case may be. Those are ways that I think are small triggers, but they awaken creativity in you. Because who's going to change their vision board and find the ugliest tiny house they could think of? Not us. Like, somebody might, but it ain't gonna be us. Like, that tiny
Mm-hmm.
house is gonna be pimped out.
That's
Make
true.
no mistake.
Yes.
So I think those are little ways that we can do it, and
Mm-hmm.
we can empower ourselves to become the people we want to be, to build out the life that we want to live. I think that's going to be just a couple of ideas of how we can get there.
Thank you so much. Ooh, yes, those are easy to implement too, right? So if you feel like you're not a creative person, as we covered during this interview, as Leslyn shared, it's a process, it's a practice of tapping back in every single day, little by little, until you realize, oh my gosh, I was creative this entire time. And those gifts are not lost,
No.
right? They're never lost. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want to ask, as we're winding down, any offers that you'd like to share with the audience?
Hmm. So, for the purpose of this conversation, I put
Mm-hmm.
together a few quick poetry prompts.
Mm-hmm.
Just a few little things to get you thinking, to get you, just to spark a moment of liveliness, right? And they're divided in categories, mood categories. So if you're feeling happy, what are you going to write about? If you're feeling sad or if you're feeling off or depressed or whatever the case may be, they're categorized like that just to give you a few ideas. Now, of course, it's not an exhaustive list, but I offer that free, that you can, jumpstart your ideas and allow yourself a moment of peace, regardless to what your mood is that day. Sometimes you'll have 10 moods in a day.
It's true.
That's who we are. We are dynamic,
Mm-hmm.
ever
Yep.
changing, and I love it. And we love it for us, right? So I offer that. You'll find it at the download at, I think it's Leslyn Moore your literary architect at
Mm-hmm.
kit.com. And you'll be able to download it now. It will cost you your email. That said, it is yours to enjoy and to help build the life you want.
I love that. And yes, I also have the link to your skills assessment guide.
Oh,
Anything you
yes.
want to share about
I
that? Mm-hmm.
forgot. I completely put that out of my mind. There is another one on there. It's for a tiny skills assessment. And by tiny, I mean like a starting off point. Just a few questions that'll spark ideas and help you to start breaking down the things that you see. So simple questions that would allow you to say things like what do people ask you for help with, or where do you, a good question that I'm not even sure is on there but probably should be, questions like, where do you prefer to be in the middle of the day? Like things like that. If you don't prefer to be in the office, then you probably shouldn't be working in corporate. Like the middle of the
Mm.
day is an interesting time of day, you know? So just a few questions to help you start breaking down at the bigger ideas and to see what you have that you can build out with. These are going to be very interesting. And as you answer these questions, it is imperative that you are honest with yourself,
Mm.
because we cannot be the creative beings that we are meant to be if we lie to ourselves. That is a very essential part of growth. It is an essential part of healing. And so we have to recognize it for what it is. If you say, for example, people often ask me for help with cleaning, but you know you hate to clean, but the
Mm-hmm.
thing you love to do is organize, don't lie to yourself. Maybe what you need is to do something with organization and not necessarily cleaning. Because remember this, never ever forget, money flows where energy goes. If you put your energy into cleaning and you hate it, you might make some money, but you'll be stuck there hating it. And you'll hate it equally as much as you hated that corporate job you left.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm-hmm. I feel like that just spoke to my soul. Yes. Yes, that's true. That's so true. Wow. Yeah, so please download Leslyn's free poetry prompts as well as her free skills assessment guide at these links here in the chat if you're live or in the description if you're watching the replay. Um, yeah, I want to thank y'all so much for being here. Leslyn, thank you so much for coming on, sharing everything that you shared with us. I have to go back and watch, right? Because, I mean, the things that you shared are so layered, so deep. It's going to take me a second to really like parse through, right, the messages that you shared with us today. Um, so thank you. Thank you so much. We are grateful that you came
It
on.
is my pleasure indeed.
Yes. I want to ask as we're wrapping up, one last message that you want to share with the audience around the healing power of creativity. If someone is still looking to tap in, but may be hesitant to rediscover these parts of themselves, any last message that you'd like to share?
A couple of things.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about healing is that it's not about perfection, right? It's about expression. We have to remember that you're never going to wake up one day and say, I am healed. Like, that's not how it works. It is a journey and it is a constant movement towards that thing, which is almost elusive. It's almost as if we would never actually get there, right? But you will get
Mm-hmm.
better over time. Remember that it's not about perfection, it is absolutely about expression. And that's what creativity is, isn't it? It's about the
Mm-hmm.
expression of something that moves your soul, it's about the expression of something that quickens your spirit. And those are things we have to keep in the forefront of our minds as we carry on this journey. The community is here to support you in any way. Like, think about that. If you're at a job that you hate, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you're looking for ways to leave, then we have people in the community who are here to help you find ways to leave that job, right? We have
Mm-hmm.
the HR lady, we have a lot of people who are here to help,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
When you've left, after you've not left any money on the table, after you've gotten all the things that you needed to get out of that and you have separated from the company,
Mm-hmm.
now you're in that place where you're like, Oh, but what do I do now? Like, we have been so indoctrinated to always having to do something. We always want
Yes.
to be productive. We always want, like, it's a lot. But when you
Hmm.
get to that place, that's when you need that skills assessment. Because
Hmm.
sometimes that skill that you overlooked, that is going to be the ticket to getting you happiness, to getting you healing, to getting you joyfulness, and most certainly to put some money in your pocket, right? So
Hmm.
that's where that gap is. So you want to remember that. You also want to remember that your voice matters. Oh, does it ever matters? Like, I think about I think about Dr. Maya Angelou, and
Hmm.
I miss hearing her voice on live interviews. And sometimes I have to go back and listen to some of her old interviews. Sometimes just hearing her voice is centering to me because the tone, the timbre, the rhythm of her voice,
Hmm.
it screams poetry. If you've never read anything from her, if it's the first time you're hearing her speak, you know that within her is a poet. You know it because that's who she embodies that, right? It matters. Your voice matters. And over time, that thing that you pulled out to offer the world, you'll start sounding like it too. And you have to remember that it is valid. Your voice is valid. Your story is valid. And creativity, sister, it's your birthright. That's what it is. It's your birthright.
Hmm.
Never, ever forget. And do not allow anyone to take it from you, to stifle it within you, because creativity is a form of liberation.
Hmm.
This is the thing that was birthed when our foreparents were standing in the sun and it was
Hmm.
relentless, and the people hovering over them were relentless when their bodies could no longer take it. This is the thing that happened. Out of that birth creativity. It
Yes.
is a form of liberation, and we will use that. We will use that to reclaim our power. We will use it to rewrite our narrative. And as Black women, there's no other way to go. Like there isn't. Make no mistake, I cannot think of anything, really, on this globe that did not come from that place, that source that we came from. I can't think of anything.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right? So we will use that creativity that they are stifling, that they are stealing, that they are monopolizing on. We will use that to
Hmm.
reclaim who we are, to reclaim the power within us, to reclaim everything that they have stolen, and to rewrite the narrative of who we are meant to be. That's what we will do. That's how important creativity is to us as Black women. I think it's time to jump off that soapbox.
No. I was sitting here like, yes, please. That's so powerful. And just you saying that, like our words are very powerful, right? Like awaken something within me, like I'm ready to revolt because it's true.
It's very interesting. You say
Hmm.
I'm ready to revolt, but you do that on a daily basis. Like everyone in the
Mm.
chat can say, everyone can
Hmm.
back me up when I say, when you do a video, right? We listen to we listen to the themes that you speak of. We listen to the way you structure not just the questions that you put to your conversations. We listen to the structure in which you answer. those questions yourself. And we look at the way that you put forth healing to the community, and we see it. And we talk about it all the time. Like we go in chats on other channels and we talk about you all the time.
I want to blush. Oh,
My
thank
sister and I
you.
talk about you all the time. So you do. And look at what you've done. And if that's not creativity, I don't know where else to look for it. You have taken something that the world look at, and the only thing that they see is an avenue for them to exploit, right?
Hmm.
Within the
Hmm.
clinical medical fields, industry, what you do is something that they would never look at as true healing. To them, it is a way to keep one perpetually ill in one form or another. If you use what you do in the financial world, it is always going to be a way for the corporations to make more money and everyone else to remain downtrodden. And you have taken that and liberated it away from this craziness. That, my sister, that's revolt.
Wow. Ooh, thank you. Thank you. Not gonna cry. Hold it in, but thank you. I truly appreciate that. Yes. Ooh. But yes, on that note, y'all, this has been transformative. A transformative Friday, right? I need to mark this February 21st, 2025. I got to sit down with Leslyn Moore, and she changed my life. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank y'all to those of you in the chat, as always, sharing your experiences, your knowledge, your resources, your information as we continue to heal collectively. I want to wish y'all a beautiful weekend to come. And yes, please subscribe to Leslyn's channel. Her downloads are in the description section as well. But yes, y'all, I appreciate y'all being here. And until next time, bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.